All right, here we go. Let's talk about Derek Stingley's brand new deal with the Houston Texans. The cornerback getting paid at an extremely high level. Laremy Tunsil explains why Laremy Tunsil is no longer a member of the Houston Texans. A couple of signings that fill a need and maybe give us a tip, plus your questions, comments, joys, and concerns throughout the course of the show as well. Get live in the comments section if you're watching this after the fact. Of course, you can get live in the comment section there as well. Appreciate everybody for jumping in. Let's start with Derek Stingley's new 3-year, $90 million extension that the Texans handed him that makes him the highest paid cornerback by average annual value in the National Football League. It blows right past J.C. Horn's $25 million per year. Now, we knew that Derek Stingley was going to get a bigger contract than J.C. Horn, but good job in all parties involved getting this deal done and not being at the mercy of someone else's deal. I think it's a positive for the Houston Texans to get this deal done with Derek Stingley ahead of time when Sauce Gardner signs his contract extension or Trent McDuffie signs his contract extension, because that would be an expensive or even more expensive endeavor than where the Texans are right now. A good job by Derek Stingley to get this thing done, because it has some built-in protection to his fellow cornerbacks going up there and getting some money. If you're Derek Stingley, are you really going to gripe about $1 million, $2 million if McDuffie or Sauce Gardner beat you out? And the guaranteed money on this, woo-hoo-hoo, $89 million for Derek Stingley. So a really big deal there for a Derek Stingley. One of my biggest things about Derek Stingley and the new contract was, what sort of idea do the Texans have about his injury history? Is Derek Stingley going to be reliable? Because Stingley's reliability was really the only question about Derek Stingley, the draft prospect. Coming out of LSU, he'd had one healthy season in college. He ended up with 2 very affected seasons via injury. And that was the only question on him versus Sauce Gardner. Nobody believed that a healthy Derek Stingley was worse than Sauce Gardner. At worst, Stingley was as good as Gardner, likely better if he stayed healthy. The knock on Stingley was, will he stay healthy? Well, he played 9 games his rookie season, and then 2 games into his second year, he got injured and was out for 6 weeks of the NFL season. But since he's returned he was actually out for longer than 6 weeks. Since he returned in week 10 of the NFL season in 2023, Derek Stingley hasn't missed a game. That's 26 straight regular season games to go along with 4 playoff games, meaning it's 30 out of 30 since he had his injuries. Now, Stingley has played 75% of the games possible for the Houston Texans. But again, 30 out of the last 30 he's played. Meaning when you factor in the past 2 seasons with the playoffs, he's been actually healthy for the majority of the seasons. So the injury concern and worrying about Derek Stingley's injury, though valid, is something that's a little bit less on the back burner. And I wondered, how many of Derek Stingley's games did he play in his 3 years before he got his contract extension compared to, say, a guy like Nico Collins before he got his contract extension? Well, Nico Collins played 77% of his games to Derek Stingley's 75% of his games. So, well, when you look at it that way, if you play 75% or more of your games and you're one of the best players at your position, or if you play 77% of your games and you have a really strong third season, the Texans would be more than comfortable handing you a contract extension. Obviously, if you're Stingley, you're going to get top of the market, reset the market. And if you're Nico Collins, you're going to get a competitive offer that is a good deal for you and a good deal for the Texans, maybe at a time where they don't have to do that deal. So I like this deal for the Texans and Derek Stingley. There's a little bit more of an advantage to this contract for Stingley than there is for the Texans. It's worth noting J.C. Horn got a 4-year deal. Pat Surtain got a deal that's longer than Derek Stingley's deal. Marlon Humphrey's deal. Marshawn Lattimore's deal. All these deals were longer than Derek Stingley's deal, as well as the deal for Sauce Gardner. It likely will be a longer deal. Same with Trent McDuffie. So Stingley getting only 3 years on the new contract versus 4 or 5. That is something to pay attention to. It's a little bit of built-in protection for the Houston Texans should the injury issues pop up. If, say, in the middle of the 3rd year, Stingley's injury issues become a major hindrance, you don't have to worry about a very, very expensive 4th year where you're unsure of the injury situation when it comes to Derek Stingley. If by chance the injury situation stays clean and he continues to play every game like he has for the better part of a year and a half now, well, then Derek Stingley either double dips from the Texans for a brand new contract or he hits free agency as a free agent and he gets a giant contract out there, or maybe the Texans ahead of that final year deal him like they did Laremy Tunsil and get something, and they have other players that they want to go out there and pay. But Stingley can benefit greatly from the end of this contract. It's worth noting he'll be a free agent after the 2029 season, the way that it's currently set up. He's got 25 and 26, then the contract covers 27, 28, 29, so he'll be a free agent in 30. Still near the height of his powers for a cornerback, but maybe not as expensive as, well, reset the market by $5 million. Now, what does Stingley's contract tell us about how the Texans will operate with Will Anderson, how it will operate with C.J. Stroud? Well, I'll answer that here in just a moment. Well, I want to get to some of your comments, questions, joys, and concern. The comment section is, of course, welcome to weigh in on anything that you want. Super chats go to the front of the line. Gifted memberships go to the front of the line as well. Good to see you, Panda. Good to see you, HDAV Traveler. Appreciate you. Roberto, good to see you in here. Chase with the sting emoji. Lord Badonkadonk. Hell of a name there. Meow. All right. Kenneth, good to see you. Patrick, appreciate you being in here. The people want the mock draft simulator. Look, if I give you mock draft simulator all the time, then that's all you come for. So, I don't know, we're not going to give you mock drafts all the time. But you'll have plenty of mock drafts before the draft gets here. Don't you worry. Texans made some moves today. I'm happy with them. So, yeah, it's a good one. Thoughts on the Ronald Darby signing? We'll get to Darby after we talk about Derek Stingley, Will Anderson, C.J. Stroud, Laremy Tunsil, and more. As Panda says, make sure you hit the like button, Blake F. Appreciate you being in here. It's a great dog. I hope that's your dog. So, and Jonathan, Stoots would be mad if the Texans went wide receiver first round. I would not be mad if they went wide receiver first round. I have a particular set of wide receivers that I really like for them in the first round, but I wouldn't be mad if they went wide receiver. They need somebody outside, opposite of Nico Collins. Marky Mark, good to see you in here live. So appreciate everybody jumping in. Hey, the real Blake Fisher. Maybe not. Maybe that is Blake Fisher's dog. Maybe. So what does Stingley mean for C.J. Stroud, and what does it mean for Will Anderson? Well, the Houston Texans were confident enough in Derek Stingley to fly past the average annual value at the top of the cornerback market. And would they do the same for C.J. Stroud or Will Anderson pending their 2025 season? Because a year from now, C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson can sign a brand new contract extension just like Derek Stingley did. So would the Texans be willing to do that with C.J. Stroud or Will Anderson? Let's talk about Anderson first because he's another member of the defense. Then we can talk about C.J. Stroud because it's a quarterback conversation and it's a little bit different. So when it comes to Will Anderson, the player that I often compare him to and the player that I would be looking at as a comparison would be Nick Bosa. Now, Nick Bosa was in a much different situation than that of Will Anderson because Bosa missed his entire second season in the National Football League, with the exception of 2 games. He had an injury, and he missed his entire second season in the NFL. Will Anderson, of course, has already played 2, and upon the conclusion of this upcoming one, well, then he would find himself having completed 3 full seasons. Bosa got paid after the 2022 season before the 2023 season, which was his 4th year in the NFL, his 3rd full season. Now, he happened to get paid off of a Defensive Player of the Year award, 6th in the MVP voting, as well as a Pro Bowl and a first-team All-Pro. Now, Will Anderson, if he goes and does that in 2025, then Will Anderson's going to be a very, very expensive player. But I've sort of used Bosa as the guy that I would reference when I start thinking about Will Anderson's deal and ultimately what Will Anderson could get. Bosa, through 3 full seasons, and I am counting those 2 games that he did play in 2020, had 43 sacks, a 6th place in the MVP, as well as a first-team All-Pro and a Defensive Player of the Year. For Will Anderson to accomplish that, Anderson would have to go out there and have one of the most incredible seasons ever by a defensive lineman, because through 3 full seasons plus 2 games, Bosa had 43 sacks. Will Anderson, through 2 seasons, has 18 sacks. Obviously, if you're doing the math there at home, that's a 25 sack season. And if Will Anderson gets 25 sacks, go ahead, give him $40 million a year. Don't give a damn what he makes if he's getting 25 sacks. Okay. But let's say Will Anderson has a pretty solid season. Let's say even he jumps with roughly the same level of jump that he had from year 1 to year 2. Let's say he gets to 15 sacks. Now that comes in 10 total sacks short from Nick Bosa, but Anderson's been one of the most disruptive and consistent defensive linemen in all of football since he's arrived in the NFL. So you have to factor that in. Ultimately, what I'm getting at is I don't know that $34 million a year, so $170, is exactly what Will Anderson would get, but it stands to reason with the price of inflation on contracts that $35 million or more, less than $40 million, which is Myles Garrett, the new top of average annual value for defensive players. So between 35, which is Max Crosby, and 40, which is Myles Garrett, is where Will Anderson could end up with a really successful 3rd season in the NFL. And, well, I would be pretty happy to pay that if Will Anderson improved the same amount that he did from year 1 to year 2 in year 2 to year 3, because that was a pretty big jump and he was a really impressive player his 2nd season. A little bit of injury concern for Will Anderson. He played most of the games. Obviously, towards the end of the rookie season, there's a little bit of an ankle issue that slowed him down a little bit. And the ankle has been a little iffy here or there for Will Anderson, but you're looking at 35, or let's just say between $32 and $38 million for Will Anderson. Now, that's a defensive lineman. Let's talk about it from a QB perspective. How does Sting affect CJ Stroud and his contract? Again, the Texans were very content to blow past. I meant to put on, but you get the gist. Sting effect on CJ Stroud and his contract. The Texans were content to blow past the highest average annual value for a cornerback. Would they be content to do that for a quarterback? Now, it's worth noting the highest average annual value in football right now is a 4-year contract that Dak Prescott signed. 4 years, $240 million in total value, which averages out to $60 million a year. That was signed last year. This year, Josh Allen's 2025 signed contract is a 6-year deal, $330 million in value. That comes out to $55 million in average annual value. There are 4 quarterbacks that have a $55 million average annual value. That is Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and Jordan Love. A successful 2025 season should easily earn CJ Stroud a $55 million average annual value. I'll put it on the screen here for us to all look at. Look, Trevor Lawrence can make 5 years, $275 million. A successful 2025 leads to CJ Stroud making that much money. How successful does 2025 need to be to get up to Dak Prescott's $60 million? I don't know that CJ can get there. Short of a Super Bowl run, and again, similar to the Will Anderson gets 25 sacks, pay him whatever the hell you want. If the Texans win the Super Bowl, pay CJ Stroud whatever the hell you want. Okay? But $60 million, it feels untenable here for CJ Stroud, but $55 million feels easily achievable, and with Trevor Lawrence making that, feels like the floor. So what can CJ Stroud make? Somewhere between 55 and 60 million. I wouldn't put it past David Mulligetta, his agent, to ask for the 60 million, have the Texans at least contemplate being close to the average annual value and the highest point in the market, just like they blew past the highest average annual value in 2025 for a cornerback. They could, with a solid 2025 from CJ Stroud, blow past the highest average annual value for a quarterback in 2026. So that's something to think about. And all that money we talked about, well, there's a reason Laremy Tunsil's not here. He'll tell you. I'll tell you. We'll talk about it here in a minute, but let's get to some of your comments. HDAV Traveler, we all come here for your great personality. HDAV Traveler, I appreciate you for the kind words. I think some people do come for the mock drafts, and that's the only thing they come for. And you'll be well taken care of as the season rolls on. Let's get to some of your comments here. When's the draft? Somebody gave out the date, and then Patrick said, for the Caserio, it's the 25th. The man loves day 2. He has had some success on day 2. He's been a little rough on day 2. Sway, we will get to the Ronald Darby comment here in just a moment. I do like spelling Stingley's name with a $, especially because on his Instagram account, he celebrated with crawfish. And right now, crawfish are ridiculously expensive. So you know that man got a brand new contract after that. Did you guys wear green today? Only my underwear. So nobody's pinched me today. So I guess they believed I was indeed wearing the green. Arthur Wilson. Hey, Cody, I know you're out on him, but I think Josh Simmons at 25 might be a good idea. If the medicals look good at them, how upset would you be if they picked him at 25? I'd have zero belief that he's going to stay healthy enough to be a good player. You want a player that potentially can be elite at that position if you draft him there. And I don't believe coming off of a patellar tendon injury, he can be elite. And I maybe am being too widespread and sweeping with the generalization of patellar tendon survivors. But I'm not trusting an injured guy to come in here and protect CJ Stroud if I'm spending a first-round pick on him. Fifth Ward Texans, 2002. For Will Anderson Jr., $25 million at best, nothing more. Now, I feel like that's just craziness. That's crazy. Will Anderson at $35 million could end up being a pretty good steal at the end of this year if he has an awesome year. The salary cap's only going up. It's going to jump past $300 million here in the coming years. For $35 million, let him walk. Well, who's rushing the passer? Give Will Anderson an extra $2 million for his marketability. Will's not going to need any marketability help when he's taking care of business on the field like that. Lassiter is a lockdown on one side. Petrie over commits. It could take the next step in control, more instinctive on routes. Ward leads but gets hurt. I don't think we're talking about safeties here a little bit. I caught the chat in the middle of Jerome. CJ haven't thrown for 25 touchdowns yet. 60 way too much for CJ Stroud right now. Absolutely. If I had to offer a contract to CJ Stroud right now, I would probably offer him something close to Kirk Cousins' contract. I'd offer him $45 million a year. And I'd probably put it at 5 or 6 years with the idea that we renegotiate it. Again, $60 million or $55 million or somewhere in between that is only if he has a really good 2025. I hope everybody understands that caveat. I'm not asking for Laremy Tunsil to make, for CJ Stroud to make $60 million no matter what, or $60 million plus no matter what. If he has a really good 2025 season, that's going to be the asking price. I'm just preparing everybody. As Mr. Heisenberg says, if we make it all the way to the Super Bowl, that's a good argument that you could pay $60 million a year for CJ Stroud, especially if you get there on his back. Certainly. Now, see, Fifth Ward, if you just adjusted what you're paying people, you could pay Will and you could pay CJ. Sean G. talking about the patellar tendon conversation. Medical procedures have advanced some over the last 20 years, Cody. LOL. You're right. ACLs used to be a death knell, and they're not anymore. But the patellar tendon surgery, even in the past few years, has still shown a dramatic drop in players' performances more often than not. That is one surgery that hasn't made the giant leap that ACL, MCL, PCL, ankle surgery, ligament surgeries have made. That patellar tendon surgery is still one that is drastically overall negative for players in the long run and lowers their overall ability to be successful. That's why I'm a little worried about it. Lane McCall with a super chat weighs in. What areas do they save money when paying all three? Well, you save money by not paying guys a year from now. Imagine if Derek Stingley was a 2-time All-Pro. He'd be more expensive than anybody that's going to sign after him. Imagine if CJ Stroud, you didn't pay him after a really good 2025 season and he had a really good 2026 season. It's more expensive. If you're for sure about a guy, the Texans seem to be that about Derek Stingley, you're going to go ahead and save a couple of bucks by paying a guy. It also lets you begin to start long-term planning around that contract with the idea that the cap is going up in a couple of years. So while you don't save money necessarily because they are expensive contracts, you save money compared to making those deals down the road. Just ask, I don't know, the Cincinnati Bengals, who signed Jamar Chase to a contract worth $40.25 million per year, when a year ago they could have got Jamar Chase for $36 million per year. That's $4 million or so that they could have spent elsewhere. The same thing could be said about T. Higgins. T. Higgins makes over $28 million a year right now. If they had signed him last year before the Nico Collins deal came down, before the Devontae Smith deal came down, before the DJ Moore and Jalen Waddle deals came down, they probably could have had him for $25 million a year. So you save a couple of bucks when you know about a guy by not waiting. Now, I would like it to be clear, I don't believe T. Higgins is going to be worth anywhere close to that amount of money, whereas Jamar Chase, he's worth every penny. He's worth every penny. Navy Soup Kid. Cody, how do you feel about Torrey Horton around 3 or 4? 4 would be awesome for Torrey Horton. That's the wide receiver out of Colorado State. Had a knee injury into his 2024 season, but he's really productive in 2023 for the Rams? Is that what Colorado State is? Another green and another like an animal. Juan Flores. Cody, you demand. Appreciate you, Juan. Gustavo, late to the party, but I'm here. With the Darby and CJ, GJ signings, where does this leave Petrie? Rich boy, we're going to save that for the Ronald Darby portion of the conversation. Tay says, Will Anderson Jr. and CJ, if they take a step, that next step in year 3 most likely reset the market. Less likely for Anderson because Myles Garrett's a gold standard and a defensive player of the year candidate every single year. CJ certainly has the opportunities because quarterbacks just keep going up and 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 up. Will's a nice dude. Have to stay on the field. Go see what Steph did about his ankles. Yeah, Curry used to have them ankle issues. Texans tangents with one of my big thoughts coming out of the Stingley news. Nico Collins' contract was damn near perfectly timed and a huge steal compared to some of these other contracts. It's worth noting, Nico signed his deal and came in below Jalen Waddle. Nico's a better wide receiver than Jalen Waddle. Now, he's less expensive than Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. On that list, only 3 of those players I would take instead of Nico Collins. That'd be Chase, Jefferson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'd take Nico over all those other guys that are paid more than him. All those other guys. I recall Rick Smith used to say that 7 players get buku bucks and the rest fight for the scraps. Who are the 7 players that are going to get paid? Well, okay, let's go with Nico. Let's go with Will Anderson, CJ Stroud, and Derek Stingley. There's 4. Let's call it a pass rusher opposite Will. So there's 5. Let's call it another offensive weapon. So there's 6. Let's call it one of the linemen. So there's your 7. I don't know 3 of those names, obviously, right now. But that's what I could, if you wanted to go by the Rick Smith model, that's what I would say. Our front office seems to have a cleaner relationship with our stars where they won't be holding out for a new contract in a few years. Doesn't seem to be Nico or Stingley's personality either. Yeah, that's a good point, Patrick. And that's something that is not really come to fruition under Nick Caserio. It hasn't had a lot of guys that would. Though this name is one to pay attention to, is Danielle Hunter next in line for an extension. I would hold out if I was Danielle Hunter. I'd hold out for next season. Cabo Bob punch card. I'd hold out for next season if I didn't get a new deal. If I was Danielle Hunter, I'd either look for a little bit more cash in this upcoming year, or I would hope for a new deal. Would you extend Danielle Hunter now in order to kick that can a little bit more down the road? I'd be willing to add him for another year, like another year or 2, and have that kind of end right as huge numbers. Huge numbers. Nico over Lamb, AJ, LOL, stop it, Cody. I like Nico Collins more than AJ Brown. He's not as good, but I feel like he's a better teammate. And CeeDee Lamb is not currently paid more than Nico Collins. Obviously, I like CeeDee Lamb more than Nico Collins, but he's not currently paid more than Nico Collins. Oh, yeah, there he is. He's on the number right there. Oh, I missed CD. Oh, yeah, CeeDee Lamb. So there's 4. I like Nico better than AJ Brown. Amon-Ra, CD, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. I totally missed CeeDee Lamb on this list. My bad. Jerome, props to you for keeping me honest. St. Brown, a product of his environment. He's not better than Nico. He is better than Nico Collins. He is better than Nico Collins. Just in case, let's pull this up here. In case anybody's looking at money. Jamar, Jefferson, Lamb, I take them. Metcalf, I like Nico. AJ Brown, I like Nico, though it's close. Amon-Ra, I like Amon-Ra. Ayuk, I like Nico. This version of Tyreek Hill, I like Nico. T. Higgins, I like Nico. Waddle, I like Nico. Moore, I like Nico. Smith, I like Nico. Nico, I like Nico. Ugh, Deebo Samuel, really high. Ugh, Michael Pittman, really high. Ugh, Calvin Ridley, really high. Scary Terry's good. Scary Terry's good. It's worth noting Nico Collins drafted ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown and is one of those wide receivers that Amon-Ra can rattle off from memory that got drafted ahead of him. We'll get to Ronald Darby here in just a second. We talked about all that big money. That was there. And I'm sorry I didn't recognize CeeDee Lamb the first time around. So 4 guys that are paid more. Big money for Derek Stingley. Big money coming down the pipe for CJ Stroud, for Will Anderson. That is one of the reasons Laremy Tunsil is out. And if you listen to Laremy Tunsil, that is the only reason that Laremy Tunsil is out. Tunsil meeting with the Commanders media today, this via the Commanders Twitter page where they live stream Tunsil meeting with the media. Laremy said, hey, The Texans were pretty clear at the reason they got rid of me.
Trying to keep the young guys together. As simple as that. When I was a rookie, and I would talk to my OG, who was Brandon Albert and Drummond Bushrod and Mike Pouncey. They told me it's a young man's game. And, I've seen it for myself. They drafted some young guys and they hit on every draft pick. They're trying to keep those guys together. So I fully understand. Like, they just paid Stingley today. Like, they just gave that boy that bag. So I truly understand. Like, it's no hard feelings. Like, at the end of the day, it's a business. You know what I mean? I don't take anything personal. There's no hard feelings against the Houston Texans.
No hard feelings, doesn't take anything personal, and they had to pay a bunch of the young guys. That's why they moved on from Laremy Tunsil. That's what they told Laremy Tunsil on the way out the door. Of course, they're not going to tell him, hey, you set a bad example for the offensive line room. We didn't really like your effort, and you were too selfish as a football player. That's also why we got rid of you. But that's been out there enough to make it seem silly that would be the only reason Laremy Tunsil was out. Of course, Tunsil is going to be looking for a brand new contract at some point with the Commanders, but that was Laremy Tunsil in his own words as to what the Texans said were the reasons why he was out. They didn't have enough money to pay him down the road. They maximized their value in a trade for him right now. I would be fascinated to hear Nick Caserio answer this question. Nick, Laremy Tunsil said that the reason the team moved on from him was to pay other younger players. Is that the complete reasoning as to why the Texans moved on from Laremy Tunsil? Because if he answered that question, gives him an opportunity to criticize Tunsil if he wants, gives him an opportunity to praise the young players that they do have, gives him an opportunity to praise Tunsil, praise how expensive he is, praise how tight the salary cap gymnastics are going to be to keep some other players. He can talk about sacrifices and all this and that. But ultimately, I'd be interested to hear Nick Caserio answer that question. He will and should have a press conference here pretty soon ahead of the draft. So will be interesting to see if we get the chance to ask that question, what Nick Caserio's answer would be to that their question. Also, from Laremy Tunsil's press conference, media availability, whatever you want to call it, with the Commanders media, he said that he's really working to clean up the penalties, and that's something he definitely wants to change in his game. Laremy Tunsil saying all the right things so that he can ultimately get the big contract with the Commanders. Never said that he wanted to clean up the penalties here in Houston. In fact, blamed everybody else for his penalties. It was the center's fault. It was the referee's fault. 19 penalties, Tunsil taking accountability for it now on the way out the door here and in the door at another place. Quickly, Sean G had this question. He said, are you in on Bradbury? It's Garrett Bradbury, the former center of the Minnesota Vikings. Are you in on Bradbury coming in as competition at center? For a small amount of money, I would be interested in Bradbury coming in, but a failure in an offshoot / sister offense like Bradbury was in, I don't know that that's exactly where the Texans want to go. He never really felt like a mauler or like he was actually worth the investment in Minnesota. For a small amount, come in, try to make the team, but I got to imagine there's some team that's going to give Bradbury a little bit more than what the Texans can offer him. Original Jay has an interesting question. We'll get to Jay's question here in just a moment. New cornerback Donald Darby. Good Lord. New cornerback Ronald Darby. Couple of questions about Darby. It's just Sway says, thoughts on the Ronald Darby signing. Darby got signed to a 1-year, $2.5 million contract. He's going to be the outside backup for Derek Stingley and for Kamari Lassiter. Now, of course, Stingley played all his games this year. Lassiter missed a little bit. But when they didn't have those guys or they needed a break or a breather, the options were limited. Jeff Okudah, he stunk. D'Angelo Ross, he allowed a perfect passer rating filling in for Kamari Lassiter. in Green Bay. Like, it was perfect when Jordan Love targeted D'Angelo Ross. It was perfect. What was Street Fighter? Perfect. It was perfect when they targeted D'Angelo Ross in Green Bay in that game. So he can't be the backup 3, the backup outside guy. In theory, you got 2 backup guys. You got a backup inside guy, you got a backup outside guy. He'll be our cornerback 3. He'll be the outside backup to Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley. Probably good money for Darby at this point in his career. He was average last year for the Jaguars. They moved on from him after 1 year of a 2-year deal. Rich Boy J asks, with Ronald Darby signing and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's signing, or CJ Gardner-Johnson, as I guess he goes by now, where does this leave Jalen Petrie? It still leaves him as the slot cornerback, the nickel back for this Texans team. GJ is a safety, not an inside corner guy, and Darby's an outside guy. So nothing affected with Jalen Petrie from that conversation. But Ronald Darby, or as I called him a minute ago, Donald Rarby, is going to be the backup cornerback for the Houston Texans behind Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley. I say that should he earn that job, because if the Texans have another veteran or a rookie that comes in that beats him out, $2.5 million does not keep Donald Rarby, or as he's more affectionately known as Ronald Darby, on the roster. So that's where we are on Ronald Darby. Of all the names for me to get wrong, that one feels pretty easy. This one, a little bit more difficult. Jakob Johnson is the team's new fullback. And the original Jay asked, who's this fullback that they brought in? I called him Jacob earlier today on the SNL stream with Landry Locker from the Locker Room. And I'm sorry, because I pride myself in getting guys' names correct. His name is not Jacob, like a dumb American would think it is. It is Jakob Johnson. Jakob is from Germany. He's part of the international player pathways that the NFL had that was bringing in players who played a style of American football abroad or played offshoot styles of football and ultimately put them into the player pathway. Jakob Johnson, or Johnson as I primarily will call him, Johnson played fullback for the New England Patriots when new offensive coordinator Nick Caley was the offensive line and fullbacks coach for the New England Patriots. He's 30 years old. He's got really good pass blocking stats, according to Pro Football Focus. The run blocking is a little iffy, and I don't know if Jakob Johnson is going to make this team. I don't know if the Texans are going to use a fullback, but if Nick Caley is going to try to figure out if he needs a fullback or wants a fullback, he's got to have a fullback to try to get that job. Worth noting, British Brooks, who the team converted to fullback last year, is still on the roster, and they could add any other fullback at any given time if the Texans indeed felt like they needed a fullback. Plus, as Toke with me notes with the Frank Ross emoji, the custom Frank Ross emoji, which you get if you are a member here on the channel. Memberships are great. They've got 3 levels. Level 2 is what I recommend, but you get all sorts of perks with the memberships, including custom emojis. As Toke with me notes with the Frank Ross emoji, fullbacks can indeed help out a lot on special teams in a variety of ways. So a fullback as another special teams ace, plus as a helper in the run and pass game, primarily as a blocker, you would hope. Jakob Johnson has that opportunity here for the Texans. How's Jakob at tight end? I don't know. I'd prefer probably the Texans go out there and draft some tight ends, even though we know with Nick Caley, anybody can be a tight end. And if you are a tight end, well,
I like tight ends.
Nick Caley loves tight ends. So there you go. There you go. Super chat from Navy Soup Kid says, can we get Cody and Landry mock draft stream? Landry, not a huge fan of the mock drafts. I, of course, love a mock draft. If you put the right conditions on the mock draft. A lot of times Landry will be on board. I will work with Mr. Locker to get us an SNL mock draft, likely sometime next week. But I will certainly work with him to get us a co-mock draft or a mock draft over on the SNL. And it's not, John says, Landry just did a mock. He did. He likes mock drafts. I love mock drafts. Okay. I love a mock draft. Nick really has a big buy low, fingers crossed approach to a lot of players. I think he's shooting a tad below 500. I mean, he mentioned that that Zach Bond deal he felt like was a pretty good deal where they got Zach Bond for almost nothing. He turned into an all-pro player. They decided to keep him. They've got a lot of starters back on defense. They need to add depth players on defense, which they've done a pretty decent job with. They don't have a lot of starters back on offense. You're going to have likely 5 new starters on offense. You're going to have a new left tackle, 2 new guards, a new outside receiver, and a new slot receiver. Now, we know who the slot receiver is. That's Christian Kirk. We know who one of the tackles is going to be, and that's either Blake Fisher or Titus Howard. So 2 new guards and a new outside starter at wide receiver. That's kind of what you're looking for right now if you're the Texans, plus some additional depth. They've got to go out there and draft some of those players and then add in that. We're probably in the second wave of free agency now. That third wave of free agency, got to add that as well. Did I hit somebody with an okay? Okay. Eric. Why did you curse on Eric? Thanks. Got to check that out. I'm guessing that means Landry's mock draft. People love mock drafts. I don't want too many of them, but, Cody Stoots and Landry Locker, SNL, Texans stock mock draft. The folks want it. We'll make it happen. How far off from catching the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Baltimore Ravens do you believe the Texans are right now? Not from Ashton. I mean, offensively, they're not there yet. Defensively, they could slow down those 3 teams. Maybe not the Ravens. The Ravens might be the wrong matchup for them. But 2 out of those 3 teams, they can slow them down. They beat the Bills, and they almost beat the Chiefs twice. Offensively, they're not there yet. So they're a tier behind them. And it's hard to say from a distance standpoint how far behind, but they're a tier behind them. He really did it. Yeah, I mean, I'll do it. I'll try a voice. I'll try a funny voice every now and then. Hey, how would you like to suck my balls, Mr. Garrison? Wait, Mr. Garrison was the teacher. Mr. Mackey was the principal, right? It's been so long since I've seen South Park. Yeah, Garrison was the teacher. Eric. Mackey was the principal. Okay. Drugs are bad. Okay. There we go. I think I got it squared away. Gage, do you think Josh Simmons can fall into the second round due to his injury? If so, would you trade up for him if he fell into the second round? I do not want to draft Josh Simmons. He is the Ohio State tackle that had patellar tendon injury. People thought it was an ACL injury. It's actually a patellar tendon injury. That put him as a no-go for me. Not in the first round, not in the second round, not in the third round, not in the fourth round. If he was there in like the 5th, 6th, or 7th, I'd take a flyer on him and hope for the best. But he's not going to, because some team's going to convince themselves he'll bounce back from the injury. I don't believe he's going to bounce back from the injury. I'm betting on history. I'm betting on science in betting against Josh Simmons, the tackle from Ohio State. Javon Davis says Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, one, slot receiver. You got Christian Kirk. Two, has said he really only wants to play in Chicago or the two LA teams. So I haven't even started really considering Keenan Allen. He's kind of been off my board here. Were you mad about the Journey concert going out? I was at Journey Friday night. Electrical fire kills the stage and prevents them from finishing the show. Matt, no, because it's not. Nobody could have foreseen that. Something happens, and I'll be able to tell everybody till the end of time I was at the Journey concert that got canceled. I bet you they come back next year and tear the damn house down. Original J says Diggs taking a pay cut to stay in Houston. I don't know. I feel like some team doesn't get their wide receivers that they want in the draft, and they go pay Stefon Diggs a little bit more than the Texans would be interested. I believe CJ is going to become a little bit more of a dual threat quarterback next year, meaning he'll run more. Yeah, I do believe he'll use his legs a little bit more as opposed to maybe forcing some of the throws that he did this year. I do believe that'll happen. Maybe they're trying the old Ravens approach. Great defense, good enough on offense. I do feel like they're going to end up being better than good enough on offense. Which divisions do the Texans play next year? I actually have the infographics for this somewhere, if you will bear with me. But they go out west, I know. I know they're in LA twice for both the Chargers and the Rams, in addition to a trip to Seattle as well. I'm hoping to make the trip to Seattle. And based off of the looking at the home games, looking at the road games, they play the AFC West, which is road games with Kansas City and the Chargers, home games with the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders. And it looks like to me they also play the NFC West, because you're going to get road games with the Rams and the Seahawks and home games with the Cardinals and the 49ers. Your other two teams, or other three teams that you play, is a road game with the Ravens, a home game with the Buccaneers and the Bills. So the Bills coming back to town again next year. Hope you caught all that. I could have thrown the infographic up, but then that would ruin my video down the road about who are the Texans' 2025 opponents. Tay says, respect my authority. Respect my authority. Excellent episode. That's throwback. That's like the first couple of seasons. Not John asks, Tyler Booker or Donovan Jackson? It's Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama, or Donovan Jackson, the guard from Ohio State. And I know Donovan Jackson played tackle at the end of the year out of necessity, not because he's good at specifically playing that. I'll go Tyler Booker, guard out of Alabama. I'm not as worried about the physical limitations as some other people are. Mr. Mackey's the counselor. That's a good point. Yeah, that's what I meant. Principal, counselor, whatever. You think they tried extending Christian Kirk before the restructure? Probably. They probably want to see if he can not have a freak injury for a season. Cody didn't stop believing, like the video sub. Did Journey play your favorites, Stoots? I mean, they're in the middle of Don't Stop Believing, and we didn't get to separate ways. So they did not get my favorites, but I'll catch them down the road. Fun fact, apparently Journey's had some serious legal issues between people in the band in the past and maybe even currently. Who knew? Speaking of that, Daryl Hall is in Houston this week. He's at the Arena Theater on Saturday. And I was like, hell yeah, Daryl Hall. I'll go listen to Hall. Probably play some Hall & Oates songs. Hall & Oates are fighting each other in court. They hate each other now. But Daryl Hall's in Houston, Arena Theater. And I was like, that can't be that much. $100 for Daryl Hall, which I like Hall & Oates. I don't like Hall & Oates enough to pay $100 to go see Daryl Hall by himself at the damn Arena Theater. So sorry, Daryl. Not going to go catch you Saturday night. I'm going to go to Brooks and Dunn instead. Thought he was doing Brother Ooh when he was looking at the Debo and the other wide receivers. Yeah, it's pretty close to Brother Ooh. Brother Ooh. What's the origin of that clip? Not John with the super chat. Thank you, John. Thank you. Who's better now, Sauce or Stingley? I believe Stingley's better. I believe Stingley's better. I believe right now the Jets would trade Sauce for Stingley. The Texans would not do the same. David Andrews, former Patriots offensive lineman. He played center for, I think, like 8 seasons for the Patriots. I mean, coming off a shoulder injury, people aren't sure if he's going to even play anymore. I don't love trying to convince guys to keep playing, but you never know. I'd be interested in having him in. A guy like him, though, you're making him the starter. He's not really here to compete. Like, if healthy, he plays. I don't love it. Sean G asks, if Gray Zabel, who is the North Dakota State offensive lineman who I've liked since I saw him at the Senior Bowl, is gone at 25, who would you need to be there to trade back no more than 5 picks? Who would you need to be there to trade back more than 5 picks? I mean, if you traded back from that spot, you're probably not getting whoever's there at 25. Like, I would just hope that Booker is there if you moved back. You moved back 5, I would just hope Booker's there. Dylan Lefebvre. I'm sure the B is silent in this. I think I've asked you this before, Dylan. Dylan, who gets the bag next? I mean, Daniil, if he gets a contract extension, I don't know that I would do it. All right, quick housekeeping, and I only do this because he's my buddy and because I know there's some Coug fans here. My guy, Will Kunkel, he's following the Cougs for the NCAA tournament. He was there for the Big 12 tournament. He was one of the only TV guys there. He's the only TV guy there for a portion of it. There are going to be some TV stations that aren't there. My guy, Will Kunkel, at Fox 26, he wants you to follow his coverage of the Cougs. You can download the Fox local app and get all the coverage during March Madness from my guy, Will Kunkel. You can do it on your TV or your phone. He'll have pre- and post-game shows live on that app, plus all his typical coverage on his social media. I told Kunkel I would take care of him and letting the people know. He's very proud of the fact that he's covering the Cougs. Where they go, Kunk goes. Okay? Where they go, Kunk goes. So help out my guy Kunkel. Throw a couple downloads his way on Fox Local. Plus, I was able to twist his arm a little bit and make sure that yours truly is going to be on Kicking It with Kunkel in the future because I promoted his Cougar coverage. So there you go. Who gets the bag next? I guess Cody does because he got Will Kunkel to agree to a deal that was very much in favor of Cody. Sauce is what to get paid now? I would think Sauce is asking for 31. I mean, more than Stingley, which is fine with me. I don't care what he gets paid. Lefebvre. Okay, so I got it bad. I got it way wrong, Dylan. Sorry. Lefebvre. So the R is silent and the B. It would be wild if both Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama, and Gray Zabel, the guard from North Dakota State, were gone by 25. It would be wild. It's also not out of the question. I've seen Booker go as high as 10. So it's not out of the question. And Zabel, I mean, certainly not out of the question he could go high. Can we get a list of the 25th overall pick the last few seasons? You know what? You can. And you know why? Because I have the perfect website. It's a website called drafthistory.com, and I usually don't give this away. So I think this website's very valuable. But let's take a look at who has been drafted. Let's see if I can get the chart to show up a little bit bigger. Oh, yeah, here we go. Oh, yeah, here we go. Look how big this chart is. Why don't you guys look how big my chart is, huh? Who's got the biggest chart around? Me. All right, no chart shaming over here. 25th player selected in the NFL draft. This is about the past 10 years. Jordan Morgan for the Packers, big disappointment for them. Packers fans are pissed. They believe he sucks. Dalton Kincaid, really solid player, tight end. They liked him. I think they maneuvered around to end up getting him. Obviously, we know Linderbaum's a freak. He's a monster. Center for the Ravens. Travis Etienne, probably an overdraft at the point, and not worth the 25th overall pick. Brandon Ayuk was a really nice selection there by the 49ers. Hollywood Brown, solid player there. Hayden Hurst, okay. Jabril Peppers kind of sucked. Artie Burns stunk. Shaq Thompson, very okay. Jason Verrett was good when he played, could never stay healthy. We'll call that one a crappy one. Xavier Rhodes, crappy. Dante Hightower, awesome. James Carpenter, bleh. Tim Tebow, bleh. Vontae Davis, okay. Mike Jenkins, okay, if I remember. John Beeson, awesome. Santonio Holmes, good. Jason Campbell, Ahmad Carroll, William Joseph, Charles Grant, Freddie Mitchell, bleh. So 25 kind of stinks historically. Although the past few years, I mean, freaking Linderbaum and Ayuk, those are probably the two best picks over the past 4 or 5 years. Good question, Jay. Good exercise. It's a good job by you. Kind of crazy that this was Sting's most physical season and he stayed healthy. Yeah, finally stayed healthy. He's played, we did the math earlier. It was, 25 games in a row now? Or 30 games in a row now? What did we come up with? We did the math at the very beginning. He got hurt in the 2023 season in week 3. And he came back week 10, and he hasn't missed a game since. So that's 26 plus 4 playoff games. So 30 straight games now for Derek Stingley. 30 straight games. Can you do a way too early win-loss prediction for next year after the schedule comes out? Any chance the Texans trade up? I'm trying to think of the player that would have to start falling that they would want to go get him. I mean, if Armand Membu, the tackle from Missouri, started to fall, they might be intrigued to go get him. Armand Membu from Missouri. But I don't know that he's falling out of the top 10. And I would think that player would have to get to like 16 or 17 for them to go up there and do it. But Caserio is ready to deal whenever he feels like he has to deal. Remember when they could have had Tyler Linderbaum and instead got Kenyon Green? I'll never forget it. It's me, Kylette. Okay. Either trade up or trade back, baby. So no sticking and picking, huh? No sticking and picking. Okay. I'm down with a trade back. Maybe I can entice Landry Locker to do SNL Texans talk with a mock draft where we trade back. Who's the guy on the O-line you wouldn't like at 25? Good question. I mean, Josh Simmons, obviously. I wouldn't take Josh Connerly from Oregon. Probably a little early for him. Not really what I'm thinking. I wouldn't take Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, and I wouldn't take Ersery from Minnesota. I'm fine with Booker. I'm fine with Banks. I'm fine with Zabel. I mean, obviously, Membu and Campbell, if they fall, they're not going to, but I'm fine with them. Any sleeper picks you hope the Texans draft this year? Haven't created sleepers yet. It's a good question, though, not John. I mean, I like Jackson Hawes, not necessarily because of a sleeper, but because he has a day one defined role. He's Georgia Tech tight end. He's your blocking tight end. Quite simply, your blocking tight end. So he has a defined role day one as a late round pick. I haven't found any sleepers yet, though. I haven't got to that point in my draft process. Kyle Williams from Washington State. I like Kyle Williams from Washington State. The interior O-line depth in the second and third round is great. Do you think it's kind of a sweet spot? I understand need, but if you have a wide receiver available at 25, take him. Take him, Will, and then try to get some in that sweet spot there in the second and third round of the interior offensive lineman. Jonah Savanaia. Jackson, if he falls, from Ohio State. Savanaia is from Arizona. Tate Ratledge from Georgia. There's definitely some depth there. Who's the top-rated center in the draft, and where is he projected to go? Here's the twist. It's Gray Zabel. He's the top-rated center, and he's projected to go in the first round. Now, the guy that's not Gray Zabel that plays center, I don't know off the top of my head. I know Jared Wilson from Georgia. He's got a lot of people excited about him at the center position, but Zabel's actually the top center in addition to one of the top guards as well. Are the draft needs greater this year or last year? Last year, because you had to find starters last year. And they did. They found 2 in the first 3 picks. Plus, they traded back to get another one. You got to find starters this year early on, too. But Texans tangents. T. Ferg from Oregon. He likes him. Okay. T. Ferg's good. I don't know about good blocker. He's got some moments. Any O-line player still available in free agency you'd like the Texans to get? Brandon Sheriff. I'd be in on him. Somebody asked a good question up here. Albert M. asks, if it's not Egbuka, the wide receiver from Ohio State at 25, does it have to be O-line? No, it could be Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan. It could be Luther Burden, the wide receiver from Missouri. It could be Tetero McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. If he fell, it doesn't have to be offensive lineman. It just feels like it should be offensive lineman. Also, if Kenneth Grant fell at defensive tackle, I feel like D'Amico would have a hard time getting past him or not getting him. Is there any way we could land Emeka Egbuka, Gray Zabel, and Trey Henderson? What would that take? It'd take it'd take most of your day 2 capital from the next 2. It would take most of your day 2 capital. Like, that'd be your day 2 guys for the next 2 drafts. So probably not realistic because of Egbuka and Gray Zabel being so close to each other. Stefon, maybe it's Steven S. Harris. Draft Thomas Booker out of Alabama, offensive line. Tyler Booker is who you're looking for. Tyler Booker. Dylan says, if for some reason Ashton Genty, the Boise State running back, fell to 25, I guess he's asking would I take him. Yes, 1,000 times yes, or you get a king's ransom for moving back. I was rewatching y'all's reaction to last year's draft. Everyone was saying both Lassiter and Bullock were horrible picks. I was not well read on either of those guys last year, and I had my cornerback favorites. I'd sort of already made my peace at the cornerback spot, and I did a bad job, and I'm going to do a better job this year. Same with Bullock. Did a bad job with him. I'm going to do a better job this year. Would Igbuka alone make you feel good about our wide receiver situation? No. I want Igbuka and one more guy. Do you think they're contractually tied to the tight end room for this year? If not, who's in the first to see the door? I mean, it's not a lock that Brevin Jordan's making this team. And if Dalton Schultz stinks in camp, they might cut him. So I would tell you those two. Stover's on the squad. But it's not a lock Brevin Jordan's making the team. He has like a half guaranteed contract. He's got to go out there and ball out. I still remember the Kool-Aid bet. You and I both. We would have had some Kool-Aid fun if they drafted Kool-Aid McKinstry. Derek Pangburn asks, didn't you want Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama last year? How did he do last year? Well, he wasn't Kamari Lassiter. That's for damn sure. Beast Ben wants Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas, Tate Ratledge from Georgia, and Xavier Restrepo from Miami, Elijah Arroyo from Miami, and Jonah Monahan from USC. This would be hard, but not impossible to do. Kaylee's going to grab a tight end in the draft. You know he is.
I love tight ends. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased there.
You know he is. So excited this draft and then the post-draft breakdowns. Yeah, we're going to have some fun. Have some fun leading up to the draft and have some fun around the draft. We're targeting, I was hammering out the details with Landry, targeting a day 3 party, hanging out somewhere, big group, just hanging out, talking about the first 2 days, watching day 3, targeting a day 3, maybe a day 2 party. Still combing through everything. Are we going to get the who's the ketchup and who's the salt packets on the team this time? In the summer, Albert. In the summer. I want you to reference this date. I want you to say, Cody, on St. Patrick's Day, you told me ketchup and salt packet comparisons. I want you to hit me with that in July. And then the next day, I'll have ketchup and salt packet comparisons. Albert, it's your job to remind me. Give me 24 hours, and then I'll have it ready for you. Who's the biggest in size at tight end in the draft? So you talk about the largest human being at tight end? It's probably the UCLA kid. He's enormous. Let me see here. Let me see what the combine said. See the is there a way to? I'm trying to think who these guys are. Who are the tall ones amongst these guys? I mean, Warren's not a small fella. Let's see, tight ends. Yeah, so Moliki Matavo from UCLA is 6'6", 260. He looked like a tackle at the Senior Bowl. So 6'6", 260 from Moliki Matavo. That's pretty freaking big. The Syracuse kid's big too, isn't he? Let's see. Jackson Hawes is 6'4". I think it's Moliki Matavo. T. Ferg 6'5", 247. So he's not quite as tall, not quite as big. No, the Syracuse kid's 6'5", 243. Yeah, I think it's Moliki Matavo as far as the combine participants. Isn't there a dude that plays DT and tight end? Yeah, from Ole Miss. I don't know how to say his last name. I haven't figured that out yet. I need to look that up so I get it right. Yeah, we played a running back and defensive tackle. Say Boogie. What was the name of that Texans offensive lineman and that center that retired during training camp? Do we figure out what the story was behind that? It was Justin Britton. He just didn't want to play football anymore. His body was beat up. My personal best case scenario, Thrill Ben spoke. Luther Burden from Missouri in round 1. Trey Henderson from Ohio State in round 2. Trade up for Tate Ratledge. Round 3, cornerback Kobe Bryant from Kansas. Round 5, Dylan Fairchild. I don't love it. Puggies. Thank you, Lance. The original J, 6'6". Oh, yeah, now we're talking. I bet he's a block. I bet he can block great. He was not awesome at the Senior Bowl. He was not awesome at the Senior Bowl. But, I mean, he's a big body. Moliki Matavo, UCLA. All right, I think that's what we're going to call it tonight. Is there Luther Burden prospect fatigue? Probably, because he was thought to be a guy coming out last year, ultimately didn't. Beast Ben, a person like Elijah Huzzy, has not made it onto my radar just yet. Defensive end from North Carolina, right? Defensive back, excuse me. I've seen him in the back end of drafts, so I'll do some more looking. Tired of seeing defensive free agent signings. They signed a fullback. Luca Kandra slept on, Cody. That's the guard from Cincinnati, right? Luke Kandra. Yeah, he's a big bastard. 6'5", 319. Lance didn't love him on the breakdown on NFL.com. Okay. SNL this week, 4 p.m. Wednesday, we'll hear from some of the new Texans. Not sure exactly who, but we'll hear from some of the new Texans. Maybe Derek Stingley. I would think it's probably C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Christian Kirk, but we'll hear from the new Texans. Some new Texans. We'll hear from the Texans on Wednesday. Memberships are live. Your viewing experience doesn't change if you don't get memberships. It does indeed enhance your experience, gives you freebies, perks. Well, it's not freebies because you pay for the membership, but get your perks, extras is what I like to call it. Get your perks or extras if you sign up for a membership. You can also gift memberships to your fellow members. I do not decide who gets the gifted memberships. It's randomly assigned through the YouTube people. It's another way to support. I'll answer your question at the top, just like it's a super chat if you gift a membership. As you can see, Pandaline with some of the custom emojis that you get. You get access to some videos early. Some other fun stuff with the memberships. Will memberships help me arrive on time? Only the little notification bell can do that for you. So you know those notifications that can hit it down there when you get subscribed. Should be a little notification bell, and that'll get you here on time, I would hope. I have a new fun feature that Jake Asman taught me that we'll incorporate for the next mock draft. I'm trying to think. I have some fun stuff for you for this week, but I don't know off the top of my head. Been traveling during the day, kind of fried. SNL tomorrow, 4 p.m., a 2022 redo, as the French would say. We'll look back at 2022's draft. Obviously, it's in the news because of Derek Stingley's contract extension. We'll look back at that 2022 NFL draft from Nick Caserio and see where he might have just absolutely jacked it up. We don't say smash the like button here. We swarm the like button, as Gage would say. We swarm the like button. Okay. Not going to have a live here, be live on SNL, but I'll have a video for you tomorrow. I'm going to Post Malone tomorrow. So if you're going to Post Malone tomorrow, come see me at the Wine Garden before or after. Let me know. Patrick, okay. I want you to do something for me, Patrick. If people have seen Patrick say this in the chat, you may not know what he's referencing. Patrick, if you can remember the video that I did this on, go put a comment there, a new comment in the comment section, and I'll go pull it from that video, and I'll finish shows with Eat Good, Sleep Good, Be Good, and then Hip Hoppity, Dip Doppity Do. I'll finish a show or two with it. If you go find the new one. Or if you go find the old one, and I'll go grab that part so people will know. This is a little strange. Don't do that. Don't like that. Swarm is fine. We don't need to stroke the like button. Swarm is fine. So, Ayad knows. Okay, what are we doing with the please no politically motivated avatars? Giving homework. Just to Patrick. He's the one that says it. Play a P. What are we doing? Pass the button for consent. Stop it. It's not just swarm the like button. Don't do dirty things to the like button. Don't do dirty things. The like button. It's a thumbs up. Just hit it. I don't even want to know what some of you folks do with the thumb. Y'all nasty. Y'all nasty. Okay. That'll do it for the likes. Don't tickle the like button. Don't do that. Bubba. Come on. All right. I truly enjoy doing these, and we have so much fun. And thank you, everybody, for doing whatever you do to the like button, watching, commenting, sharing, super chatting, membering, new membering, giving memberships, all the great stuff. Thank you so much. Brian at the buzzer, if you're looking at an offensive lineman or a wide receiver in the first round. Wide receiver. Tetero McMillan would be my favorite, but Emeka Ikbuka would be good. Take the button out on a date before all that. All right, you guys are, I'm done. All right, Patrick found it. I'll go get the goofy, Patrick. Thank you. But Bubba, I'm not reading that one, but we're gonna see. Y'all nasty. We have the live streams the same way each and every time. This is my hope for you. This is my charge for you as well. I want you to eat good. I want you to sleep good. I want you to be good. And we'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. Y'all just be kosher with the like button. I don't even want to know what y'all do to the subscribe button.